go rook e5 with the idea that after he moves his bishop, it's to go rook b5. And I got a raging rook in this position. I'm attacking this pawn. I'm attacking this knight. Hi, everyone. This is the very first DMV Adults Only tournament. It's only open to people over the age of 18. And I actually had to take 2 buys for the first and second round. So we're starting our recaps here in round 3, and it was a very complicated middle game and a very interesting opening, and I'm excited to share with you this game. This is part of the Road to National Master Series, so I'm trying to get to 2200 USCF, and I play e4. He plays e5, and we blow into the Italian game, and he plays knight f6, and against this, I like to play d4, and it transposes into a Scotch gambit. If we go like this, you could do it the Scotch immediately. And a Scotch gambit is after when black takes, we blow bishop c4. But in my move order, I did bishop c4 first, and then d4, and now it transposed to the exact same thing. In this position, I played e5, and my opponent played knight g4. This is not the main move, but it's totally playable if you know what you're doing, and he actually did know what he was doing. I castled. Well, firstly, the main move is d5, counter-attacking the bishop. So if I take, he takes, and if I take, he takes, and this bishop is developed on a really nice diagonal. He's got these big pawns in the center, and this would be pretty bad news bears for me. And he's up a pawn. So this would be not very good for me at all. So after e5 and d5, I usually go bishop b5, and the game goes on from here, but this is one of the main ways to play. He goes knight g4, I castle, and now of course, he cannot take, because after I take, he takes, I use my rook to pin the knight to the king, and if he defends, I go f4, even with the pawn, I go f4, and life is good. Like this, e2, so it all stays the same, so it would be losing if he did take this pawn. But he goes d6, trying to get rid of this pawn, and I take, and he takes. I've had in a couple games, queen takes d6, so after rook e8, you go bishop e7, so they can try to castle like this. I've seen this before, and yeah, this is a totally good way to play as well. But he takes with a bishop, and after I go rook e1 check, he goes bishop e7. What's really interesting was after the game, he said king f8 is a move, and I'm actually familiar. I know this is a playable, but of course, as white, I'll be super happy. like black is saying, haha, I have an extra pawn. I can't even take back immediately. Like if I take back now, then knight takes, queen takes, and hey-oh, you lost your queen. So black saying, I'm up a pawn, and you know, like this is like Steinitz. This is like if you know William Steinitz, the first world champion, he would play a lot of these lines where he would be up a pawn, but his king's stuck in the center. So very famously. Anyways, so yeah, so he could play king f8 here, and it's totally fine, but it's so ugly to play. But black is saying I'm up a pawn, haha. So, but yeah, he plays bishop d6 and moves his bishop again. And I was like, okay, this seems pretty good. Like it's not that bad for me. I ended up playing c3. And it's a very natural way to play, committing to the gambit. He could totally take this pawn, and now he's temporarily up 2 pawns. I could go queen c2, and he could even take again, but then now I go bishop takes b2, and I got the b lines up, you know, the bishop pair. The bishop pair, the unstoppable bishop pair here, so strong. He could castle, I go knight c3, and the game's gonna go on. And yeah, I'm just down 2 pawns, but I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be good for white. If I was a really good player, maybe I'd be able to figure it out. But I don't. But maybe I just be 2 pawns down and nothing to show for it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a totally legitimate way to play. I was sure enough to play it in the game. but he could also just take once, and then castle, and now he's just up 1 pawn. So I think this is also totally legitimate. I still have a very nice position here, and it's not so easy for him to develop. not super easy. Maybe you could go knight d4 at some point. And actually, the main thing I was calculating after c3 was pawn takes, queen c2, and knight d4. This was the thing that I was mostly worried about. And I wasn't too sure. Firstly, I could just take and maybe to bring the bishop back, perhaps. And my queen guards the f2 pawn, so it's not hanging. I could do that. Or I was really calculating after knight d4, this really cool move, rook takes e7. And if king takes, then queen e4 check. And if knight blocks, then I take this knight. And if bishop blocks, then I take this knight. And if queen takes, well, then I take here. And there is no back rank check because of bishop f1. And my queen guards f2 once again. And so I was like, this looks really fun. this looks really fun. So I actually wasn't scared of knight d4, but I did have to make sure to calculate it though. Like if I don't have rook takes e7, then I don't think it's as nice. But maybe this is also totally fine for white. Okay, I play c3. He does not take. He decides to castle. He wants to catch up in development, get his king out of the center. Very principled move, but that does allow me to take. Oh, I play h3 first. I could take and then go h3. I don't think the move order matters. In the game, I was kind of hallucinating, and I thought if I took immediately, he would play bishop f6, and I wouldn't be able to defend this pawn. And that's true. I cannot defend this pawn very easily. For example, bishop e3, then knight takes, and if I take with the rook, then I lose the pawn. And if I take with the pawn, well, I have this kind of ugly looking e3 pawn, but maybe it's not ugly. I thought in the game maybe this was bad, but looking at it now, if I can play knight c3 and just e4, I got these raging pawns down the center of the board, the BWC, the big white center. And so maybe I should have thought about this a bit more, but for some reason I was worried about this. I think the main thing I would have to worry about is black undermining my center with the move f5 or c5, but he can't do that. His minor pieces are in front of his own pawns here, so he doesn't really have that much pawn play. So looking at this now, I actually really wish I went for this, or may not wish I went for this, but maybe I should have considered this more so than I did in the game. Okay, but actually in this position I just have h3. And I'm like, why didn't I consider this? Like, I saw this and I was like, oh no, I can't go bishop e3. That doesn't look very good. If I push this pawn, then he has this e5 square and life looks good for him. And like, he has enough defenders on the square and he's attacking my bishop. And I really didn't think this was that good for me if I just took immediately, but I just hallucinated. But h3 is not a bad move. h3 is totally fine, totally normal. Makes a lot of sense. He goes knight f6, and now I take. And yeah, I mean, the knight is actually pretty decent on this square. And he didn't have any threats with the knight on g4. So I honestly, the more I think about it, the more I didn't like the move h3. The more I don't like the move h3. But he plays bishop f5, so pretty normal development. And I play bishop f4. So far, we both played pretty natural moves. Like, very, very natural moves here. I am up 20 minutes on the clock, though. And so he spent a long time trying to figure out the right way to develop. And that's honestly pretty fair. I mean, firstly, look at how beautiful my bishops and knights are and the center pawn. Like, I have beautiful central control here. Everything is very harmonious. But yeah, he did spend a lot of time to get here. And, in a lot of these gambity lines where, like, white has the initiative, I think it's fair to spend a lot of time because time control is game in 90 with a 30-second increment per move, so it's very long games, or can be very long games. Yeah, so I think it's very fair, because if he messes up, if he puts his piece on the wrong square, or if he it's game ending. Yeah, you're gonna get really blown off the board in a lot of e4 positions if you mess it up against a gambit sort of line. In this position, though, he finds a very interesting move, knight b4. And the idea is, well, number one, if I'm lazy, I guess I'll play, I get forked. My rooks get forked. Actually, I want to revisit this a little bit, actually. He actually played h6 here earlier. I actually want to point out this move. This move is actually very interesting. The idea is to give the bishop more space to go back if knight h4. So Laban in the game, if he plays knight b4 now, he was worried about knight h3 at some point. Like, he actually thought I could go bishop f4, and if knight c2, I have knight h3. And I'm threatening this bishop. And the bishop has to move off this diagonal, and if you take my rook, I take your bishop, threatening this with check. And if you defend it, then I can just, probably, I could even take, I can just leave my knight there too, and just take this knight, and I have 2 pieces for the rook. So he was kind of scared of this knight h4 move. So that's why he played h6. He played h6, and then after I developed, then he played knight b4 here. And I could totally play rook c1, and there's no threat of a fork. So what was the point of the move? Well, the point is to control the d5 square. So when your opponent has an isolated queen's pawn, so in this case I have an isolated queen pawn. This pawn has no neighbors. It cannot hold hands with anybody. It's lonely. It's lonely. Isolated. And you want to control the square in front of the pawn. That's like the positional thing to do. You need to control the square in front of it. And because this is a permanent weakness, this isolated queen pawn, in any endgame, it can be a weakness. So the side that's playing against the IQP wants to control the square in front of it. Well, both sides want to control the square in front of it, but the side with the isolated queen's pawn, they want to use their extra space. So I have more space since I have this pawn, and he does not have an isolated queen's pawn. I have more space in the center, and I want to take advantage of it. I want to play with activity and kind of have a better game, I guess. How should I phrase this? Yeah, I want to have more activity and play more dynamically, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I could totally just play rook c1, allow him to go knight d5, and probably just move my bishop somewhere, and he's going to play c6, and he has great control of the d5 square, but the game goes on. He doesn't win. He's not winning suddenly. He's, it's just a game. It's like, the game goes on, and we'll play this game for a lot longer. But here, I come up with this interesting idea, and it is go rook e5 with the idea that after he moves his bishop, it's to go rook b5. And I got a raging rook in this position. I'm attacking this pawn. I'm attacking this knight. If this bishop moves off this diagonal, then this will be a hanging knight. And if I can sometimes even go a3 and threaten to sacrifice the rook for 2 pieces. And this rook is just in black's position, and it's not super clear. It's not super clear whether or not the rook is good, and I actually thought it was good. Firstly, rook e5. I actually thought he was going to go queen d7 to guard the bishop and to connect his rooks, and maybe go rook a d8, rook e8 next. So that queen d7 was going to be his move. And I actually hallucinated something here. I thought after queen d7, I could play the move d5, and after c6, I could play d6. And if he takes, I can take, and if he takes my rook, then I can take. And I thought, yeah, life is pretty good here. But in my calculation, I completely missed after d5, rook d5, or bishop d6, and I cannot defend my bishop. And the difference is, without the move c6, that the bishop on d6 is defended. So after I take, queen takes, and bishop takes, and pawn takes, I'm just down in exchange. He has 2 rooks, I have 1. So that's why I missed in my calculation. But I can still go rook b5, attacking the knights, potentially. And I think the position is still fine. But in my head, when I was visualizing this, I completely messed up. However, he did not go queen d7. He went bishop h7, which kind of makes sense because the queen on d7 is guarding the bishop, guarding both bishops, actually. And it feels a bit loose. it feels a bit loose. Like if your queen can easily get overloaded here, defending two things at the same time. So it makes a lot of sense to just move the bishop back, get it out of dodge, and it seems pretty fine. I play this move rook b5, and of course, if he goes c6, then I could just take the pawn, and my rook has made the journey all around the board here. So he defends his pawn. It's just b6. Makes a lot of sense. He said he didn't want to play this move, right? Because it really weakens the light squares here, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And then I play knight e5. This idea of knight e5 is not was not something that I immediately thought of. Actually, I want to highlight something too. So this goes back to like finding moves that you might not otherwise consider. Like knight b4, like, oh man, threatening a fork, I should defend against the fork. But actually, what was the knight on c6 doing? It was attacking the center, or defending the center, depending on your perspective. And because the knight moved to b4, that opens up that it no longer defends the e5 square. So I was able to put a rook there. And once again, the knight's no longer on c6 still. So now I can go knight e5. In this position, I also considered a3. But I thought, like, just knight c6. And I don't think this is bad for me. The rook is super weirdly placed on b5. Like, what is the rook doing there? But I actually don't think it's possible to exploit the rook's position. And in this position, I could probably play knight d5 potentially, and if knight takes, I could take with the bishop, I could take with the rook, and continue my rook rampage. And I thought this was fine. But I thought I had something even better. I thought knight e5 was super nice because now a3 is a huge threat. It's going to force the knight to go to a6. Because, of course, let's say he makes a random move and like a3, knight c2, the bishop is just trapped. Although in this case, the pawn on d4 is hanging. So I have to be careful. I have to be careful not to make blunders. Probably after knight c2, I can go knight c6 here, attacking the bishop and the queen. And if queen d7, maybe I can even go d5, honestly. But probably not because my rook is hanging. It's kind of tough. It's an interesting, pretty interesting. But I could also just go take the bishop and then go rook c1. And now this knight is trapped. But I guess he could take my rook. So it gets a little bit complicated. It's a little bit complicated here. Yeah, definitely lots of complications. Not super easy. Not super easy. Okay, but just go back to the game here. So rook b5, b6, and I played knight e5. And I thought, like, wow, like, look at this. I got a rampaging rook. I got a great knight in the center. And his knight's on b4. There are no threats here. And you have to make sure, well, you have to make sure that the rook's on b5 isn't being trapped. And I calculated it wasn't because I have this awesome threat. So like, and it's rook takes b5, bishop takes, and knight c6. For example, if a6, the rook literally has no squares. This square is covered. If I put rook here, then it's covered by both the knights and yeah, but it'll just be down in exchange. And for example, a3, I try to go a3 here, then like takes, and like takes, and I'm just down a piece, and that's bad. That's really bad. That's really bad. So my rook is just literally trapped. Except I have the move rook takes b4, bishop takes, and knight c6, and there's no the queen's under attack, and the bishop is under attack. So and there's no possible way for this queen to guard this bishop. And and wherever the queen moves, I have two pieces. I have a bishop and a knight for the rook, and I should be better in this position. So, and I thought the same thing with c6 too. I was like, oh, c6, and I have takes, and if queen d7, then once again, it's even better because now I'm up a pawn. I have two pieces for the rook, and I'm up a pawn. This is great. This is absolutely great. And he plays c6, and I'm like, oh no, dude. I'm like, oh no. I completely screwed it up, because now after rook takes, well, firstly I had no options. My rook is just trapped. I have to give up my rook, and after bishop takes, I have knight c6. It has queen c8. That's the move I missed. Queen c8 targets the knight and targets the bishop behind the knight. So now if the knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop, and this is bad news bears. This is not good. I'm just down in exchange for a pawn, and it's not good. However, I actually think it's not so bad. And there's a fork in the road on what I do. I know I want to maintain my bishop pair. So a move like knight e5 is a backwards move. It defends the bishop. It targets the f7 pawn. And it makes a lot of sense. And, this game's going to go on for a while. But when my knight is on a good square, I don't want to retreat it if I don't have to. And there are some threats. Like, for example, he can never take the knight because of knight e7, fork-a-runos, and your gonzos, and that's good news gravy for me. But, so and his bishop doesn't have any squares. This square is covered by the knight, this square by the pawn, this square by this pawn, the d6 square by my bishop, and the e7 square is covered by my knight. So this bishop has no squares to go to. So I could potentially have some really nice initiative, because he has to spend a couple tempos guarding this e7 square or getting out of the forking square. So it's not super easy for him. And I have two main ideas. Well, firstly, I really want to play queen f3. It guards the knight, and maybe I can move my bishop next. I'm not sure why I like this move so much, looking back at it now. It's not that good. There's no threats behind it. Oh, wait, now I remember. Because the idea was after rook e8, I have the move bishop takes h6. And I win this pawn. And if he takes my bishop, then I have queen takes. And my queen is still guarding the knight on c6. And his king is naked. So I thought this was pretty good for me. And but he probably has some in-between moves. Like maybe bishop e4 works. Not super sure, to be honest. I probably just have knight takes. And it gets kind of interesting. Then he could take my knight, and I can take his knight. And after I take, I guess he could take like this. And I have the two bishops, and I'm up 2 pawns. And this position is probably okay for me. This is probably okay for me. The fact that he only has these 2 pawns on the queen side, this a7 and b6 pawns, that's pretty good for me. And yeah, white's probably totally fine here. I'm not sure if white's winning. White could be better. Not 100% sure though. So I wanted to play queen f3 here, because after rook e8, which is a natural move for him to guard the e7 square and to move his bishop back to e7 or f8, then like I have bishop takes h6, and I think I'm doing pretty good. But this is this move bishop e4. Bishop e4, which is super annoying. It hits my knight, or hits my queen and my knight at the same time. So if I move my queen, he's just up another piece. And if I take his bishop with my knight, well, if he trades, then hey, I'm just up a piece now. But he can take my knight, and I have a discovered check. So if he took back with the pawn, I would win his queen. But he can take back with his queen though, and now this is not what I want. This is absolutely not what I want. I still have the bishop pair, but this is not what I want at all. So I'm like, okay, I can't play queen f3 because of bishop e4. So you know what? I'm just gonna play d5, defending my knight, and potentially I can if I can defend my knight later, then I can potentially get this pawn rolling down the board. d6, d7, d8 equals queen. You know, like he has to be kind of careful here, because maybe I have potential to really get this pawn rolling. I have to be careful because this knight is loose on c6 if I ever push the pawn. But you know, I could, and you know, d6 would cover the e7 square if my knight was able to, so my knight would be able to get there. So yeah, there's a lot of, you know, it's not so easy to defend. He plays rook e8 here to guard the square. So he could play queen d7, except he can't because I would hang the bishop. So tactically, he has to keep his queen on c8 to x-ray the bishop on c4, so I cannot take the b4 bishop. So that's so he can't move his queen. So he moves his rook to cover the square, and I play the move queen f3. But here, d5 is already a huge mistake. So I do no engine recap, so we'll see what the engine says at the end of this video. But I believe this was a huge, huge mistake, and it's the wrong way to play. In the position, I think I need to go queen a4. Queen a4 defends the knight, attacks the bishop, but I'm not threatening to take. For example, rook e8, I'm not going to take this bishop because I lose the knight, and we're trading pieces when I'm down on material. Not good. And this knight on c6 does a great job of controlling the d8 and b8 squares, so there's nothing wrong here. And after rook e8, I could play the move a d5 now, and now this bishop is actually threatened. And he could take my knight, but I also maybe, let's see, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking here. After rook e8, he could take my knight, I guess. But i6 is my move. So I guess I could play d5. d5 is a move. D5 is probably the main move now. D5 now with the queen on a4. And if bishop takes, pawn takes, what does black even do? If we go queen d7, which seems like a pretty natural move to do, I could play rook d1 maybe. Or maybe even bishop b3 to play c3. This is also an idea, perhaps. Because if queen f5, for example, now I have this move d6. And you cannot take the bishop because of a discovered check. And d6 also threatens knight e7, forking the king and the queen. So we have to sacrifice the exchange back. So I think queen a4 and the game goes on much longer. I think the game goes on much, much longer, and I put up a lot of resistance. And I honestly am not sure if black is better. I'm not confident. I'm not confident black is better in this position because I have such great central control, and my pieces are so advanced. And his queen's weak on c8, his bishop on b4 is loose. And I think this is actually not so bad for white. But I put my queen on the wrong square, queen f3, and that just, like, I really wanted, like, bishop takes h6 stuff to work. And so I guess I was kind of tunnel visioned. I'm not really sure, but this was not the way to play. Because he takes the bishop now. Because the rook on e8 guards the e7 square, so there's no forcarunos. And after I take, he goes bishop e4. And I really don't have much here. I could go queen d1. And I considered that, but I didn't like retreating my queen. But, like, I went bishop queen g3 though, and he's with knight h5, and we traded more pieces. Which is probably not what I want. So I probably should have just gone queen d1, but it defends the pawn, and life is okay, and maybe I can, but he kind of advances with tempo, and it's still a bit scary for him, but he has to be very careful. Like, for example, queen f5, attacking, he has 3 attackers on this pawn now, but I play bishop d6, and if he takes this pawn, then I can take and go check, and he has to sacrifice his rook, and it's opposite color bishop ending, so he has to be very, very careful here. Black still might be better because they have a nice centralized bishop, and they could maybe attack on the light squares, but I'm not super convinced. I'm not super convinced at all that black is better here. So queen d1 is definitely the way to go to keep the game going. But I screw everything up, and I just play queen g3, and he attacks my knight and my bishop. I have to move it again, and then he plays queen f5 now. And my idea was, the reason why I went for this was because of queen c7. I was also considering queen d6 to go knight e7 check. But both squares guard the e7 square. And I thought, like, hey, wait, this is actually not so easy. And And my idea was that after queen d6, the reason why I didn't go queen d6 was after queen g3, I thought I had to, he's attacking my queen and threatening checkmate in 1, so I have to trade. And then I was like, is this okay for me? You know, like he stops the pawn, but maybe this is fine. Actually, if bishop f5, then knight e7 works. His bishop is hanging. So he has to be precise here. Yeah, I'm not sure why I didn't like it. I think I thought because of queen c7, I thought it was better. There was some reason why I didn't like it. Forgot why I didn't like it. I played the game yesterday. I don't remember why I didn't like queen d6 as much. I think it's because he doesn't have to go queen g6. And my queen blocks in my own pawn. So if he doesn't go queen g6 and forces queens off, then like I think he might still be fine. But instead of queen d6, I play queen c7. And I thought he would play queen g6, but for some reason I just missed queen g5. And queen g5 is just an obviously more superior, like obviously a superior move because it just guards e7 with the queen and the rook. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like as before this game, I was on a 3-game. I've lost my last 3 games before this. And you know, with this game, I was seriously starting to doubt my abilities to play chess. Because it's like I'm just missing move after move after move. Like I shouldn't miss a move like queen g5. It simply guards everything. And I mean, sure, this position is tough to play anyways, but still, it's ridiculous. Like, and like even earlier in this game, with the move queen c8, I should not miss those moves. Like I usually don't. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Am I okay? Like, am I okay here? There's like physically. By the way, queen g5. It threatens mate. It guards the e7 square, and I think white is just lost here. White is just lost. There's not much to do. You know, bishop f1, then bishop takes or queen takes. Either way, let's say queen takes. Why not? Queen takes d5, attacking the knight. I have to go back, and then he attacks my queen, and he gets his rooks in, and I just lose. Like there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. So I go out with a bang. I play g4. With the idea of playing f4 to dislocate his queen from the guard of the e7 square. But he plays very principally. He plays queen f6. And if I go d6, then queen f3. And this is just bad. For example, he's threatening checkmate in 1 on 2 different squares. If I go king f1, you can go check here. And honestly, I don't even know what the best check is. He could just take my rook. Or he could do some sort of discovered check. But I guess he has a counter. I have a counter check. That doesn't work. So I probably just take the rook. So he'll probably just take the rook here. So queen f3 is a really huge threat. So I play f4. He takes my pawn. I can't go rook e1 because it's covered by the queen. So I just go rook f1 and I checkmate 1. And probably for these last 5 moves, I had less than a minute on the clock, but that doesn't really matter. The position was so lost after queen c7. There's not much to do. Not much. And yeah, that was the game. I think I'm very proud of myself. So let's go with the good first. I'm very proud of myself for playing the move a rook e5 here. Like rook e5, I think is a great move. And I think after rook b5, I think everything is still going really well. I think knight e5 is also good. I guess not. I guess I should have played a3. So if he goes c6 now, I can just sacrifice the rook for 2 pieces, and I'm doing totally fine here. I should go at a6 and knight here and knight here. Like I should have just like done this, but I didn't. And because I missed because I missed queen c8. So if I had seen, in this position, I needed to see knight e5, c6, takes, knight takes queen c8, attacking my bishop through the knight, x-raying my bishop through the knight. I needed to see that. If I had just saw that, I would have played differently. But honestly, even though I was down in exchange for a pawn, I'm not convinced. I think queen a4, and I think it's about equal. I think it's dynamically equal. We'll see what the engine says in the next minute or two. But I actually don't think this is that bad for me. And after something like rook e8 and d5, I don't think it's super easy for him. And if he does give up the bishop for the knight, I still have this bishop pair and long-term pressure, and it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard for him to get his rooks out. And are you really telling me this knight is worse than this rook? Like, no way is this knight worse than this rook. Like, no way. This knight is good. This is a good knight. And I got these centralized bishops, and I could put a rook on d1, and, like, he's not going to infiltrate my position anytime soon. So yeah. Yeah, that was the game. That was the game. I think I have a lot to think about from that game. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Game review time.